All right, it started recording. So I'm going to start off the panel by introducing your panelists. We are joined by Luke from Calgary Economic Development. We also have Brock Skretting from Keep Alberta Rolling. We're also joined by Jill Roberts from the Writing Department and Christina from Calgary Society of Independent Filmmakers. So I'll begin by asking all our panelists to kind of introduce yourselves. You can talk about your background in film, what interests you, and we'll go from there. And I'll start off with maybe Luke, and then we'll go on to Brock.
Good evening. I'm Luke Avito. I'm Commissioner of Film, Television, and Creative Industries with Calgary Economic Development. My role in film and television is to attract foreign production into the area, which includes film and television and digital media, gaming. We represent Calgary and Southern Alberta in a global sense, are in market when we're able to travel, and do marketing and sales for the region to attract productions here. Also work with government, both municipal and provincial, on advocacy to grow and develop the film industry itself, and work with organizations like Keep Alberta Rolling and Brock as we try to inform the general public and then the greater public in regards to film and TV and as part of our advocacy work.
I'll turn it to you, Brock.
Hi guys, Brock from Keep Alberta Rolling. Yeah, like Luke said, he handles like the high level stuff, and we're really the grassroots boots on the ground, working with people in the industry to get the word out about the industry and do events. Back when the world was open, we did things like barbecues and community events, and we do online marketing, so explaining a bunch of the different roles in the industry, opportunities for municipalities to take advantage of tourism that happens because of the industry, collaboration between different organizations throughout the province. So we're really that grassroots piece that people in the industry and people who are interested in getting in the industry can follow and learn more and see what's there right here in Alberta, what's here right here at home, and whether that's a big budget, huge production, or that's a short film that's being made in a small town. Those things all count, and as far as we're concerned, Alberta film is good, and it's good business as well. So that's us. Back to you, Emily. Thank you.
Perfect. I'll get Jill to introduce herself next, and we'll end with Christina.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jill Roberts. I am with the Writing Department. I got my start in broadcasting at the U of C when I was doing my English degree. And so I worked at New TV and learned all the skills of the trade there. And since then, I've been doing a combination of writing and filmmaking throughout my career. At the Writing Department, we do a mix of commercial or corporate film and media, as well as I'm getting further into doing my own independent productions. I worked on the bigger features and movies of the week back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then veered into the corporate world for about 10 years doing marketing communications for about a decade. And then I started my consultancy, the Writing Department, and then decided I really missed filmmaking. And so now I'm going back into filmmaking with my first short film last year. And now we're in production on a short documentary. So pretty excited to be here and happy to share whatever I can.
And now I'll ask Christina to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Christina. I'm an independent filmmaker in Calgary, and I also work at CSIF as a production and equipment coordinator. So CSIF is just the Calgary Society of Independent Filmmakers, and we offer like different memberships and rental equipment and workshops. So anything you kind of need to get yourself started just on like if you want to go out in the weekend and film something. I personally have made a few short films and just worked in a variety of roles across like independent films and like on features and shows and things like that. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun working in the Calgary film industry, and just Alberta in general has like a really great, rich, creative industry. So it's yeah, really exciting to be here.
Awesome. I'm really excited to have all of you on the panel today. I feel like you all represent a wide array of experiences in the industry. I'm curious as to what sort of formal or informal education have you received, and how do you think these experiences have either prepared you or benefited your career? And everyone's open to answer this question. Feel free to build off of each response. But I'll start with Jill for this question, and we'll move to Christina afterwards.
Sure. So as I mentioned, New TV was really where I got started. I learned all the tools of the trade there. I was shooting, we had the cameras, and I learned how to edit. I was an associate producer for a while. So I really learned sort of through volunteering. And I didn't there, like the SATE, I know the SATE program is amazing, but I actually didn't go through it at all. So I was able to start working in the industry right away. At that time, it was pretty busy too, so that helped. But I did the set etiquette course at Mount Royal University. And I think we did flag person training, something like that. And then basically learned a lot on the job and just through my own research. I studied film a little bit at the UC as well. So mixed bag.
And on to you, Christina.
Yeah, I actually did do the SATE 2-year program like before it just got changed, and they have like a ton of students now, but I did that and I found it was really helpful just to kind of have hands-on learning when you're starting out and you have like no idea what you're doing. To like have a program that has you shoot on film is really like fun. Like I don't think a lot of places do that anymore. It was also a really great place to make a lot of connections because most of my classmates are the people I'm making films with now, and we just kind of come up together and then, you know, support each other when we're making stuff and like volunteer to be on each other's shoots and help each other with grant writing and all that kind of thing. So I think, yeah, it was a good place to form that kind of community tie, but now CSIF has all these other options as well. So yeah, it's something where there's a lot of different ways to get involved in the film community. So it's just finding where that is. But yeah, SATE was helpful for making those connections for sure.
Great answer, thank you. Luke and Brock, I'm curious as to your experiences.
Oh, Brock.
Rita, go ahead.
Thanks. I went to University of Lethbridge and took new media. So film was only a small kind of portion of the program there. I had in the back of my mind the bug of idea of getting in the film industry, but it was very much like theory. The things that I learned at university was that, you know, you have there's a digital video making class, there's a film theory class, there's an auteur class, film studies, versus the technical aspects, which if you follow my career, you can probably tell. But the thing that was really valuable about that was learning you know, how do you tell a story, and then also digital marketing and some other sides of the business that are now we're not necessarily relevant to my job on set. So I did all that learning basically on set and in the production office of how a production office works, how does a set work. I didn't learn any of that at university, but now going into more of the nonprofit space, some of those old lessons I've learned are definitely relevant and good for the experience. So that's kind of my background. Over to you, Luke.
Excellent. So I started off at Mount Royal University. I've been in film and television or digital media my entire adult career. From there, I went to Redwood City, California, where I spent a year in advanced camera operations and lighting. Came back home and worked for a variety of of different production companies, and then started my own company called VisionWorks Commercial Productions, which we were a support mechanism for the film and television industry. After a period of time, I started working for Hockey Canada and the Calgary Flames. So I did 4 Olympics, a myriad of different events with the World Juniors, World Women's Championships, and then transitioned from there into the Banff Center. They came and recruited me, and I spent 7 years there. I ran Creative Electronic Environment, which was the technology department. I was the director of literary arts. I was the director of visual arts, and started to develop some of the theories and mechanisms that we could trigger going into interactive digital media. Created 3-dimensional immersive environments and started to work with scientists, artists, and technologists to try to develop what the next series of entertainment and engagement was going to be. And then I came into, during that period of time while I was there, I produced, executive producer, directed hundreds of different projects that were distributed throughout the world, and then came back to Calgary to take on the position of what was then film commissioner, and then has developed now into the creative industries, which is a banner where the majority of our activity falls underneath, and now working in a variety of different capacities to try to grow and develop the industry.
Awesome. I'm going to transition a bit now. I recognize that a lot has changed over the past year, but I'm curious, what are some obvious and maybe not so obvious ways in which Alberta's industry has changed since the onset of the pandemic? And I'm curious, do you have any insight or prediction for what will happen over the next 5 to 10 years? I know it's hard to predict when everything's changing, but I'm curious. Luke, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually kind of interesting, and Brock can attest to this, as I think Christina and Jill as well, is that what we thought was us leading into a time, especially in the first few months, because we were shut down as an industry for 3.5 months. So there was actually no activity almost globally anywhere for that period of time, which meant that we had billions of people at home and absorbing and consuming content, and no content being made. So as this transitioned, you're now in a position globally where 3 things are, they're looking at, studios and streamers are looking at 3 areas. First and foremost, it's trying to create enough content that puts back what's been consumed, because they need to continue to grow the subscriber base to stay viable. So there's the content that's being created to fill that void that was that's been created from the amount of watching. It's all instant gratification, and the consumer is watching a lot of content these days. Secondly, it's what content needs to be done now for moving forward. And then thirdly, creating content so that they never get put in that position again going down the road. So what we thought was going to be a very slow year and was going to take a long time to come back out, because of the level of protocol, because of the capacity for us to function as a sector here in Alberta and other parts of the world, we're having what's going to potentially be the biggest year we've ever had. And we see that continuously growing. The Alberta government, through advocacy work with thousands of people across the province who have been, working in this industry for many years, has now garnered the amount of interest and support that has now increased our capacity in our film and television tax credit, as well as we look down the road, is going to give us an opportunity to grow our crew base by hundreds and thousands of people, and be able to grow the sector in an extremely meaningful way. So we suspect in the next 5 to 7 years, per your question, Emily, that we are going to be in the neighborhood of $1 billion industry here, having not only engaged in growing our crew base, but also taking skill sets from other sectors that maybe at this point are underemployed in Alberta, and be able to bring them over into film and TV. People like electricians, people like carpenters, people like painters, all the skill sets that are necessary for a film and television industry to be not only successful now, but sustainable long term.
Fantastic. And I'm glad you mentioned other industries as well, because I feel like there's a common misconception that in order to work in film, you have to be an actor or a producer or a director, but it definitely spans a lot of industries. I'll turn the question now to Brock. What are some changes you've seen over the past year, and what do you see for the future of the industry?
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, I think Luke covered it pretty good there. Like, yeah, the world shut down and everyone turned on the TV, and they were all the streamers were already fighting over, who can make the most content and how can they is it going to be Netflix, is it going to be Apple, is it going to be Amazon, is it going to be Hulu? So that growth was already exponential, and then some of them got caught. Some of them didn't have enough in the arsenal to keep people interested and to justify that monthly expense. So for the regular consumer, so that means explosive growth on top of explosive growth, and that means that's a big opportunity for Alberta. And Alberta already has all the things that you can't build, the natural beauty of the Badlands, the prairies, the mountains, all of that, and we have exceptionally skilled people already. So we have highly skilled drivers from our oil sector. We have technicians, builders. Manufacturing has always been huge. It's a builder's province. So sometimes just getting people aware of those opportunities, that like you don't have to go from being a driver to being a coder necessarily. That if you want to, then that's awesome, like please do, but in the film industry, those skills are basically straight across transfer. We need a driver for the cast. We need an electrician to wire the set so that the lights come on. So we need all sorts of different skills to make set dressing is like just placing perfectly furniture and odd items in a to make a set. So there's lots of opportunity there, and it's not overly complicated. It's not that it's not hard or specialized skills. It is, but it's transferable skill things. So I think that's a big opportunity for Alberta, and it's something that certainly the industry recognizes and the government as well. So that's all good news coming up bases.
Excellent answer. Jill and Christina, would you like to add on to those responses?
I could just say, like, on a smaller scale, I've noticed a lot of people have had the time and opportunity to start their own smaller productions, and like there's more interest in independent film because people have had time, or they've just found that they're lacking that entertainment, and so they are going out and making their own things. And there's like the grants are coming back now, and like people have the time to apply for things and like write things, and I think that's been really good. And like, especially since you need smaller crews and you can get more done in like a shorter period of time with less people, there's like less concerns for COVID safety, like protocols, like you can manage it better than if you were big production, which I've also like noticed a lot of pre-productions have been doing really well. Like one of the ones I've worked on recently has had some of the best COVID protocol I've seen. So yeah, it's very hopeful for the future. Like there's a lot of good measures in place right now.
Thank you for that perspective. Jill?
I would just add for that too, if you're, it's a great time to collaborate, because I know I'm part of the Banff Media World Media Festival's Spark program for women in the business of media. So we've been able to virtually attend the festival, and it's been so exciting and a lot of learning. And what's cool is that, there's like the bigger centers like Toronto and Vancouver. I mean, everyone's so used to using Zoom right now to collaborate and meet. So we've had lots of opportunity to talk to all kinds of different people, and everyone's very open to that because we're all at home, we want to chat. So I found that it's a great time to actually do like a little networking and learning, writing, all those kinds of creative things that actually work really well when the world's a little bit quieter. So.
Thank you. I was going to ask on the topic of collaboration, what do you guys think makes a fruitful collaboration? I mean, I think every production is a collaborative effort. So what do you think enhances the collaborative process?
I think it's interesting because we've transitioned into the virtual world, and our communication in most instances is over platforms like this, where we're having those engagements. I think to be it's an interesting dynamic now, because to be truly collaborative on a film or television set, no matter what the size, whether it's a smaller local production or a large production, that ability to see somebody and speak to them in a face-to-face kind of environment does increase the collaboration and the capacity to be creative. It's a much more different scenario when you're embedded in a video of this method than it is to be on set talking with people. So, and it's important, I think, as well to mention that as part of the process here in Alberta, we want to ensure that as many of our local producers have as many opportunities as possible to tell their stories to the world. And that is going to take a lot of collaboration, not only with folks like Jill and Brock, but also with CSIF, how they can engage in and transfer people's knowledge base now as to how we produce film and television as compared to what we used to do. COVID has become, a relevant factor in everything that we do. And the reason that we've been able to continue to work is because of the fact that we've got such high protocols, in some instances higher than what you're going to find in hospitals and in medical centers. And this allows people to be back on set. We create quadrants, we create environments that people can flow through a set safely and end up having the ability to be collaborative on location, which I think is core to having the best quality product up on the screen.
Fantastic. Would anyone else like to respond?
I think just in terms of being collaborative as organizations, just like celebrating wins, and when 724, who's done Heartland and Winona, wins Production Company of the Year, that cheer them on and go cheering people on to go higher. When Prairie Dog does Tribal, we have to be just as loud for them, but we also have to be just as loud for the guys that are just getting started and winning the CSIF awards and AMPI awards, and just like cheering, having an upward cycle rather than a downward cycle, and in terms of organizations supporting each other and getting the word out, because you never know that a contact that reaches out to me might be perfect for the project that Jill is working on, but I'm busy doing something else. That's collaboration to me, and I see a lot of that in Alberta, so it's awesome.
That's great. Jill and Christina, do you have anything to add?
I just say, to Brock's point earlier when he was talking about how there's like entry points at every level for carpenters to like such as like you can get into the film industry pretty easily from anywhere. Like I think there's a lot of that in Calgary and Alberta in general, that there's a lot of collaboration from fields outside of just film, that we work really well with, outside perspectives. And I think that really adds to just the flavor in general, I guess, of Calgary film.
I would only just add that it was a great last year we just finished shooting, and it was a great time to go into post-production because you're editing. But even that has its challenges because you don't get to sit next to the editors, but I think it helps being in the creative industry. You find a way to make it work. So, we've all been, I think, really flexible over this past year, and it's actually resulted in some really unique successes too. So it's not all bad news, I guess.
I want to circle back to something that Luke and Brock touched on earlier about the increased consumption of media over the past year. Do you think there's been an increase in pressure to create over the past year? And do you think, like, if so, will that continue? I'm curious as to your thoughts, and maybe I'll start with Christina on this one.
I think so, in the sense that like people are seeing more that they can also make things, as well as, you know, they can be more vocal about what they want. Because there's been kind of like a drought. The people, like bigger production companies, are looking for, you know, what the next thing is. So it's kind of like audience's choice at this point, where, you know, if you have something that you want to see, it's a lot easier to kind of put that out there and make it happen. And then, yeah, just the idea that we're going to have so many people coming into the industry now that, you know, either from state or the UC or like all of the schools in, like, I guess Canada in general, but like Alberta as well, there's like so much potential kind of coming up, as well as, you know, everything that's been kind of on the back burner and stuff that's now at the forefront because it has to get made now because there is that drought.
For sure. Jill, I see you unmuted yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, spoiler. I was just going to follow up with what Christina was saying, that it's a great time to be an independent filmmaker as well, because, you know, there's a lot of aspects of production that you can control, like all the way to distribution and streaming. Like there's a lot of different ways to be able to work that weren't necessarily as open before, even though like we can't go to the theaters right now, but there's a lot of other opportunities too. So yeah.
Brock and Luke, do you want to add on to that?
Sure. So when it comes down to the amount of production that's going to be done, this right now in our time, this is the largest amount of global production that's ever happened. So it's going as fast and as hard and as much as they can possibly do at this point. One of the things that's interesting in the transition that we've seen happen in the last couple of years is how product is now being distributed, how content is being distributed. Obviously, the streaming services, everybody's got a streaming service now, whether it's Apple, whether it's Warner Brothers, whether it's, you know, down to the Netflix, and they're all competing for a subscriber base. And what this has actually done in the last while is it has increased the knowledge of that subscriber base. So now people are being very selective on what they want to watch, because they were kind of forced into a world where you're watching what's available to you for the last period of time. So now the selection process is different. The amount of money that's being put into productions has grown significantly. Not just, and a good portion of it has become series work and television production. Whereas at one point we would have seen, you know, an actor or an actress that was in feature film, if they're transitioning into television, that means they're on the downward trend of their careers. Now television is, you know, what's being accessed. That's it, the stream is where people are getting their content. We don't know what's going to happen in the theaters. It's obviously we want to see them come back. It's strong, because that gathering of people to watch a film or a production is still extremely important long term, I think, for the success of the industry. But the amount of content being done is, you know, unprecedented, and I think that will continue for a long time as the subscriber base continues to grow globally.
Fantastic. Brock, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, thanks, Emily. And I think the other big thing that happened is like the social conversation opened up, and you see BIPOC creators and women in film getting the chance that people were pushing for before, that maybe was more of a financial reason why there's less opportunity, or there wasn't as much attention as should have been paid to those areas. And now that conversation has opened wide open, and that's very exciting for creators of all kinds, because it's more of an abundance. It's an abundance market. It's not a scarcity based market. It's if you have a product and you can put it together and you can make something that people want to watch, then there is a field of distribution for that product. And now there's a lot of interesting things happening with just like social media and trying to make that content is made anywhere in the world. So in the short term, a lot of the bigger streamers are choosing where it is, because it's a little, the COVID numbers are relatively lower than other places in the world. Some places it's out of control, and some places it's relatively not as bad. So that's short-term decision making. But in the long term, they're looking for where have the which places have the raw elements of a place that we want to create a hub, and that's a global conversation. That's every continent. So definitely like gratitude to a lot of the industry leaders here in Alberta that have made sure that Alberta is part of that conversation. And I think it's exciting times no matter what kind of creator you are, because the world is democratizing to some degree, which allows opportunity that wasn't there before.
Fantastic. Really appreciate just seeing how much the industry has grown over the past few years. I'm curious, what do you feel makes Alberta's motion picture industry so attractive compared to other provinces or countries? And whoever wants to respond first can go ahead.
So just, what we use is our calling card. Our sales tools are pretty straightforward. So you've got the prairies, the mountains, the badlands, the foothills, and 2 municipalities of over 1 million people, all within a 3-hour radius. That is a great attraction for production, which means that then in a very short period of time, they can find different locations that will meet their needs. But I've got to say that, from our perspective, what really is the most attractive component of it, when you start talking about it, we see things as a 3-legged stool, with safety now overarching everything. So when a production looks in, they're looking how safe you are. And comparatively speaking, globally, we're a pretty safe location at this point. And with the protocols and the implementation of those protocols on sets, we've been able to, he says, touching wood everywhere, we've been able to come through our productions unscathed so far. So that's, nobody knows what's going to happen around the corner, but that's important. But ultimately, when a production is looking in and they know that you've got the incentives, they know that you have the infrastructure, which we've now grown significantly, 471,000 square feet absorbed over the last 2 months, long-term tenancies for production facilities, which is unheard of in Alberta and unheard of in Canada to be doing that many square feet in that short of a period of time. We're legitimate. But when they start looking, the bottom line for everybody is the quality of the people in your jurisdiction. And we have thousands of professionals here that have garnered more accolades than most of the regions in this country over the last 20 years. This is 100 years of history in Alberta in film. And, we've seen exponential growth in the area, and the potential here is massive. And so what they're looking to do is to find those great practitioners of film and TV, no matter what level they're at and what component of the industry they're at, that the outcome is that's what's going to attract them. They can find the locations, but if you don't have the people in the region, then your incentivization isn't as good, because that really represents, labor represents in the neighborhood and talent of about 50 to 60% of the overall spend in any one jurisdiction. So from our perspective, it's the people. It's the thousands of people that work in this industry that you can brand Alberta as one of the best locations in the world to come and shoot, and the quality of the product that's going to go up on the screen is going to be outstanding. So
fantastic. I'm curious about Jill's response. I know you've crewed on productions in BC and Alberta, so do you feel there's any qualities that make Alberta stand out?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I know our crews are renowned all over the world for being, amazing professionals, and tough too. I mean, the weather that we deal with here, it's not, yeah. So they're incredible, the people that I've worked with. BC, I actually worked as an illustrator, so I was just working in the art department. So I can't speak to the average film set there, but I'm sure it's just full of amazing professionals as well.
Fantastic. Brock and Christina, would you like to add on to this?
I think you nailed it on the head there, both Luke and Jill. The crews, everyone knows that Alberta has world-class crews. It's nothing new. Been around for 100 years. But one of the things that really can make a successful jurisdiction is that is that collaboration, that being known as a film hub and being branded as a film hub. So I know Luke's been doing a lot of good work with getting Alberta on the map in terms of Movie Maker magazine. We were named top 10 place to live and work as a filmmaker, and that's specifically Calgary, but Screen Industry Office as well has been doing great work up north. And if that collaboration piece comes into play, and you've got groups of writers meeting monthly, and you've got creatives meeting and collaborating and saying, how do we make each other's projects work? How do we support each other in doing things? Then you've got that hub like what an Atlanta has, where you've got the big budget productions. Walking Dead shot there, Marvel shot there. It was a 10-year process to go from kind of a smaller jurisdiction to one of the top in the world. So that's where I think we continue to grow and look for opportunities to say, celebrate film, have people help each other out, and then over time we can look back in 10 years and look at all the amazing projects that have been made. That so that's what I have to say about that.
Sounds good. Go ahead, Christina.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much every point everyone's made. It really is the people and the crews. And I think honestly, the best part is if you come into a crew and you don't know something, you can ask pretty much anyone. Like there's a lot of helpfulness between like whether or not you're in a union, whether or not you're in like an independent stuff, like everyone wants to help everyone grow independent, like as a person on set. So that's super great to see like across that, there's going to be generations of people who can work on set and work on film because the previous people are always trying to like bring everyone else up to that standard.
Awesome. I think if at anything, we can all know that if you work in film, you're entering into a supportive community where nobody's left hanging. I'm curious, I feel like there's a common misconception that in order to be successful in film, you need to move to a big city like Toronto or Vancouver, LA. Do you feel this is always the case? Why or why not? And I know some of you have worked all over the place, so I'm sure you have some great answers.
So as the film commissioner for the region, I'd say no, don't move. But we have to find ways and means to keep people here as they're coming out of post-secondary, as they're transitioning into the industry. On a yearly basis, we have approximately 3,000 students coming out of our post-secondaries with a creative industries moniker or attachment to their diploma or their certificate. So how do we create an environment here in an ecosystem that has a consistent need for that pipeline of talent to come into the industries? And that's beyond just film and TV. We're talking about interactive digital media. We're talking about gaming. We're talking about everything from illustrations to advertising and everything in the middle. We supply a lot of people in this region to other sectors that don't have anything to do with the creative industries, but they bring the creative talent that they've either garnered from their work or from their post-secondary or their scholastic work, and they take them into these other sectors. So we want to be able to have that direct line in. And from my perspective, there was a time where Alberta was, we were the first film commission and the first incentive in Canada that was put forward by Premier Lougheed at the time. And so we created an environment that others then followed and then went above us because we stayed fairly stagnant in our ability to incentivize and attract production into the zone. Fantastic, the crews are fantastic, the backdrops are fantastic, but many of the decisions that are made even now with the situation we are globally are made on the financial aspect of it. So there's very few producers. We've met a few of them here in Alberta, and we like to get them back, which are folks like Inarutu, Chris Nolan, and such that actually, as directors, producers, can dictate where a project goes based on the creative. That's rare. Most producers and directors are caught in a manner where they have to engage based on where the financial wherewithal is. Our provincial government, as I mentioned at the beginning, is extremely supportive right now, and they want to see this industry grow. So they're making that capacity happen for us. And I think that we're seeing people attracted back. There's people that want to come home. That the lifestyle here, the cost of living, and the overall, style of life that you can have. That it's not you're not working to live. You're living and working is a different environment. So this industry is starting to grow in that manner. And I think that we're going to see people coming back. I think we're going to be able to maintain and grow with the next generation of storytellers that are coming out of our post-secondaries, and that we're also going to hopefully be able to look at people that aren't Albertans that are interested in coming into our region and will come here and stay and work in the industries because they can work year round.
Awesome. That's really encouraging to hear. Brock, I'm curious, do you have a response?
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Yeah, no, I mean, Alberta through and through. I think, I think if we foster opportunity, then that will grow, and it has. We've seen that happen over the last 5 years, and we'll continue to see that at a hopefully exponential rate in the future. And that's kind of an old school story that you have to go to a certain place to succeed. The entire world very soon will be connected to high-speed internet, and within 5 years, let's say. So that's an opportunity. So if you're able to work and play in a place that is affordable, Alberta is a very attractive place to live. There's nothing against Vancouver or Toronto, wonderful cities. Very expensive places. If you like getting out in the country and you like getting out in the wilderness, then Alberta is the place. And if we can create opportunities, then we'll attract talent, whether that's talented Albertans coming back or new talent to the province, which is just a benefit for everyone.
Jill and Christina, feel free to respond. Otherwise, I can move on.
Oh, go ahead, Christina. Okay. I saw you unmuted first.
Yeah, I'd just say that it is economically a good place to start out, especially if you're wanting to, veer into more independent stuff. You have this support network of industry jobs that you can get into, and the big productions you can work on and make those connections and do the networking, and then also be able to go off and do your own stuff, because we have that kind of foundation laid of independent filmmaker support that's just throughout Calgary and then throughout Alberta as well. We have so many film festivals geared and catering towards independent filmmakers, and it's great to see so many really creative and innovative voices come out of Calgary and Alberta in general. But yeah, it's definitely a good place to start out, and then you can easily build a career here that just kind of keeps going, because we have so much potential that productions keep coming here.
I would definitely agree, Christina and Brock and Luke, about everything you guys have said. And I've been lucky enough to work in the industry itself, and then as an independent filmmaker, as well as in marketing communications. So you can really parlay your storytelling and filmmaking's creative and technical skills in all kinds of different ways. So you don't need to leave Alberta. Do it all right here. We actually just had a recent project where I was able to direct 8 different mini docs all over the world, and from virtually. So we hired local crews, and then I was able to direct through Zoom. It was a little weird, but I mean, it was doable. And I was thinking, this is a pretty interesting opportunity. We're literally staying in the same place where normally we would have traveled as a crew to these locations, which would be nice too to visit. But to be able to have that opportunity while working from here, I just think there's tons of potential in this area.
If I can, just to touch a little bit on what Jill just said, I think there's this is a global marketplace. So we're a 24-hour clock now in many productions, especially the higher budget productions. And one of the things that we've seen recently here was that virtual component of it. We had a director that was traveling between Toronto and New York, and they had set up a virtual manner in which what they did is they took an iPad and put it on a mannequin and dressed it, and then that director was actually directing on set using that piece. So it was entertaining, but they were able to engage in real time and see a quality of visual that was extremely high end. So they could determine exactly what their needs were and move it through. So yeah, there's so many capacities now to be working from here, no matter what your designation or what your career path is. And as Brock said, the increase in capacity is going to be exponential. And having people like and groups like CSIF to be able to do support on our independent is just as important as what we're bringing in from foreign production. We got to balance it so that we end up in a situation that is not 100% service. We want to grow resumes. We want to bring the big projects in. We want that foreign direct investment that helps us grow, but we also want to ensure that our next generation of storytellers have that same or more support capacity at home so that they can stay here and become that next great director or producer or whatever they choose.
Fantastic. On the topic of Alberta's film industry, I was wondering, what do you think is the most rewarding aspect of working in this industry? And I'll start with Christina for this one.
I think honestly, like there's a great kind of turnaround I find where you get to work on something and then move on to the next thing, but you get to know, like I think it's just because of the crews that you get to work with are kind of like, you get to know everyone. So it's kind of like moving on with your family kind of thing from each production. It's a really great amount of camaraderie that we have, I think, across our whole industry. And so it's just super enjoyable to go to work. Like even on the long cold days in January, like it's still fun.
Fantastic. Jill, would you like to respond?
All right, Emily, your question was what we most look forward to.
What do you think is the most rewarding aspect of working in Alberta's film industry?
There's so many things. As Christina said, like the people that you meet, the supportive environments, the amazing creative and technical expertise that we have here is just to be around those people and to learn from them is phenomenal. And all the different organizations that we have here, like CSIF and Media and Quick Draw Animation Society and Herland, like there's so many different little branches, and there's so many things to explore. But I think one of the things I like the best is how many different aspects a single project will go through. So you do the planning stage, and that's a totally different sort of mindset. And then, the production, everyone's there, and, you've got people everywhere, and you're feeding them, and you're shooting this and that, and something bizarre will happen on the day, because as soon as you introduce a camera, that's when things go sideways sometimes. And then suddenly everyone's gone and you're like working away in the edit suite, but it's a different kind of collaboration. You've got a different little team that you're working on. And then at the end of it, you have like your on-set photos, and it's like a family album. Like Christina said, it's so great to look back and in the finished product, like this film that's gone through all these different stages and evolved at every single stage. I think that's what's so interesting for me, because it's never boring. So exciting. Yeah.
Amazing. Luke and Brock, feel free to respond as well.
So for me, it's a little bit different. I get the privilege and the pleasure of supporting this community and being an advocate for it all over the world. So I think one of the things that is a success metrics that I get the most happiness from, if you will, is that we have these productions coming in, the foreign productions, and we get to watch our folks work on them, and to see those, to see that reel going at the end of a film that you sit there and watch. Some of us will sit there and watch the whole thing, and we see all those people from our province in there. I think that's one of the things. The second piece is the thought process that we now go through as we're seeing this the younger generation coming up and taking grab of the industry and leading it, and seeing their thought processes and what they feel the next thing is going to be and how we're going to adapt to it. And so being able to work in that environment where there's so many different people that are working in the same direction, but with different ways of thinking and different manners in which we can engage to have that collaborative effort to have the best outcome. I think those are the changes that I've seen in the industry that I get the most pleasure out of being a part of.
Awesome. Brock, feel free to respond. Otherwise, I'll move on.
Yeah, I agree with everything being said about it. I think one thing that's exciting about the industry is it just by its messy nature, you get to be a lifelong learner. So whether you're a production assistant who's taking out garbages and handing out water bottles and setting up apple boxes, that might be your job, that might be the thing that you're paid to do, but you're also standing within 10 feet or no closer than 6 feet, depending. You're very close to people who have done amazing things around the world, and there's a certain amount of osmosis on the bigger shows that takes place just by being put in a high pressure situation where they're trying to create something great, whether that's The Revenant or Interstellar or like a Fargo. Every different team has a different way of working, and you're working with people who are brand new to the industry and people who are 40-year veterans, so you're getting a wide range of experience, of personalities, and of teamwork to make a project. And so that doesn't exclude you from being from being a director or being an independent DOP later on down the road. It's a good learning experience, and that's one of the things that having a strong service production side of the industry gives to the independent side of the industry. And then, lifelong learners, when you're making a project of any kind, you now have to learn about the content is. So learning about Fargo and Minnesota is very different than learning about late 1800s indigenous tribes of the Revenant, and that's a very exciting and unique job. So that's some of the things that you don't really have to have any specific background to get in the film industry. You just have to be friendly and network and wait for that opportunity to come in.
Awesome. The following question will be more so for Luke and Brock, but I also invite Christina and Jill to add on if they'd like. But where do you see the industry experiencing the most growth over the next years in terms of employment?
You start this time, Brock.
I'll let Luke correct me when I say something wrong. I think all over the production assistants, they're going to need a ton of production assistants, which is like setting up tents, taking out garbages, setting up tables, organizing traffic lockups and people lockups on set. There's going to need construction workers, painters, electricians. They're going to need organizers, so assistant directors that organize set, help in the office. So if you're good with clerical work, if you're organized and eager, that's pretty much that's all, the only traits you need to work in the production office at the lower levels. So some of those lower level positions will definitely need, and I don't know exactly where the gaps are in exactly missions, but reaching out to IATSE and IATSE 212 for the technical sides of things, that's where people can get information on taking courses and getting into the industry.
No, Brock hit it. I think there's a couple things that have to happen. Right now, one of the things that we're challenged with is the amount of production coming into the region and the amount of crews that we have to support that production. So I think there's levels. First and foremost, we want to make sure that we retain all of the talent that we have here now. So whether it's folks at the head of departments, as well as so the heads of departments are extremely important. That's the first thing that that when we start having studios look inward, that's what they're going to look for. But once you start developing the crew, I mean, your crews will range anywhere from, let's say, a small crew of 80 to a large crew of 300. And every one of those jobs is necessary. And we've seen, some growth now. And what we need to get to is we need to double, the capacity that we have right now on our human resource side to be able to just accommodate what's coming now. And we haven't even gotten into, governments making announcements as they're going to enhance our ability to be more globally competitive. So as those things start to happen over the next while, it's going to have to be exponential. And if you don't have the crew base here, what happens is that there's requests to start bringing crew from other jurisdictions. And so for us, we've got to be able to accommodate the productions themselves. So we do have conversations about how we're moving people from where and how we can make things work. But what we want to see long-term is that the majority of those people that are working on these productions, we want them to stay. So if they're coming in to visit, we want them to be here long-term. There's a provision in our film and television tax credit that says that any Albertan who paid tax in this province any one of the last 3 years can be brought back into Alberta and can be deemed an Albertan for the production company to be able to allocate incentives towards those people, because our incentives only pay for Albertans, and that's the way it should be. It only pays for Alberta's goods, services, and labor. And so having an all spend tax credit is fantastic because you can offset some costs for people that are coming in. We also have a federal tax credit, a labor tax credit that allows you to bring people in from other parts of Canada, and they support those people financially to a 16% labor tax credit if it's a Canadian product or a foreign production, and 25% if it's a Canadian production. So there's a variety of levels of support, but what we want to do is that everybody that we attract here, we would like to keep them long term. We want to grow our base so that as our students and our younger folks and those that were pivoting from other sectors come into film and TV, that there's enough work to keep them in that area. And that anybody in all of the creative industries right now, some that are still shuttered in our live performances and theater activities, also have a home here as they shift over. And so that, I think, for us is going to be grow the base so that it ends up being, we start getting into that 8 and 10 crews, because that's what's going to be necessary consistently to be able to hit that $1 billion mark. And from our perspective, if we don't do that, what's going to happen is that you've got projects that will be waiting at the door or knocking on the door that you are not going to be able to support. That's actually worse for a jurisdiction than to not get the projects. So we have to be very cognizant of this, and we got to be clear that we want all of you that are interested in this sector to come into the sector and stay here. We want the experienced folks to also be here, and we want people from other sectors to come in. So we need to grow in all areas. But to Brock's point, the majority of the crew is not heads of departments. These are people that are actually working on the crew and doing a variety of different jobs. And that's as important as the director is, because without those people, you can't have the show. So it all works hand in hand when we start figuring out what areas are going to grow.
Excellent. I think I'm going to move on and pose a question kind of relating to something Christina mentioned earlier on in terms of independent filmmaking. I believe she talked about how it's easy to start out in film or independent filmmaking these days. So I'm curious, do you feel there are any pros to independent filmmaking over working on a larger production or vice versa? Christina and Jill, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I'd say you honestly benefit from having to wear so many different hats on an independent production. You kind of have to have your hands in every role. And that's good and bad. It depends on the day, but it is helpful to learn everything you'll need to kind of do more independent productions, as well as working on larger sets if you want to do that. But yeah, there's so much potential to learn and then grow as a creator when you're working on your own projects, because nothing you do is ever going to be the same as the last project. So I think, yeah, there's so many different ways to distribute it nowadays. Like there's such a low bar of entry that pretty much anyone can make a film and then also put it out in the world and learn from that. So
Thank you for your response. Jill, go ahead.
Yeah, there's loads of ways to get involved as well. There's a ton of online communities as well, like the local Calgary film industry on Facebook, and like just tons. Like Keep Alberta Rolling is probably a great one to as an aggregate too, right? Because you guys sort of connected to sort of everyone there, Brock, building the community, which is awesome. So that's an easy way to just sort of get a peek and see what's going on. And also all the different organizations like CSF and media and Quick Draw and all those different groups. And also New TV, shout out to New TV, got it, like, you know, places like where you can just kind of get familiar with the different roles and the different possibilities. I mean, I loved working on service productions, and I loved working on the big features. Like, it was amazing to just see the sheer number of people, and we built an arc in Drumheller for one shoot. It's ridiculous. But also the independent film world is pretty cool because you get to wear a lot of different hats as well. So it's a little less, the lines are a little more blurred in terms of what you get to do. So I kind of find that's an interesting place for me, although I love both environments. But what I would really like to see more of in Alberta is growing that local like creativity. So actually generating some of that early part of it. So often when we have big productions coming here, they're coming from elsewhere. I'd love to see some like nurturing that ecosystem here. So we see our local writers working with local producers, or just being able to understand that interaction, because there's usually like a little disconnect sometimes. It's like, how do you get started? How do you pitch a project? How do you take something that's sort of in your head and move it to the next level? So I would love to see that part of the industry grow a little bit more here, and see what our local stories have to say, just as well as the rest of the industry, because it's all just, it's wonderful, and it's sustainable too, right? Like we leave pictures, or we take pictures and we leave everything just the way it was. So so that's one of the things I really like about the industry too.
Jill's point, I think two things. Yeah, we leave it as good or better than what we found it, which is extremely important. The storytelling, the local storytelling, like the tribals and the Jans of the world, where the stories are written and produced by Albertans, and some of the smaller productions. And I think one of the key areas that maybe is missed sometimes by many, and Brock and his group, Keep Alberta Rolling, tout this a lot, is that working on independent film, not only do you get to wear a lot of hats, but you get to move up. So a second can become a first, a third can become a second. And that development that happens there, you don't see that kind of development most of the time on large projects. You're hired as a certain position, that's where you stay. You may be learning other things that help you develop over time, but on independent films and some of the local projects, you actually get to move up and get put into positions where you have the opportunity to grow that next level of skill set for yourself. So when you go into larger productions, you become valuable at a different level. So I think it's extremely important.
Fantastic. Brock, go ahead.
Yeah, I think everyone has covered it pretty well. I'd just say that it's a people business. So network, and volunteer if you're interested. You know, volunteer at it's obviously we're in a little bit different times for volunteering than usual, but you know, get to know your local film festivals, get to know your local groups, your Facebook groups, participate in that conversation, because then you'll be led down different paths of you know, if you're a writer versus if you're wanting to be a director versus if you're wanting to be a technician. Those are all very different paths. So you can kind of find out what is your area in the industry that you'd like to work as. But just put yourself out there and don't be afraid to ask, because people will lead you into different organizations that already provide provide the training or provide the courses or provide resources for what you are trying to accomplish. So just be friendly and network and come on over. We need people.
Fantastic answers. And I just want to remind everyone, I have a couple more questions and then we'll have some time for some Q&As with the panelists. So if you have some questions, just feel free to hold on to them for the time being. I wanted to ask, since the onset of the pandemic, we've seen a lot of permanent and temporary closures of both locally owned theaters and also chains. But we've also seen the reemergence of drive-in movies and an increase in virtual screenings. So I'm curious, what are some creative ways you've seen people adapt to this situation, and what do you think it means for the future of entertainment, particularly in terms of movie screenings?
So a few things. I think everybody's had to adapt. I have the privilege of serving as the chair of the Festival and Events Committee and the Council Strategic Initiative Fund for the city, and we've seen everybody adapt. So from the perspective of Big Art, who started off and had the first implementation of the drive-ins, that you've got a limited amount of people coming in, you've got that are just starving for entertainment, that want to be able to engage and bringing their kids and having all of these things happen like it's very, very old school, to what now all of the different events that have had to engage. The theaters have taken a major hit. It's because of the inability for them to bring a large crowd into the venue, or at least half of the venue space. I got the pleasure to go to one movie this year, and it was Let 'Em Go, which was filmed actually here in Alberta. So I walked in there, and there was 4 of us in the entire theater. I think the fear, the protocol and lack of knowledge of protocols from the general public as to what to expect when they go in there has had a major impact. And we're hoping that the transition into the virtual world and into the television marketplace isn't going to eliminate that whole area of film and TV, which is so important, is to be able to get these things up on large screens, share watching a production on the screen, that the show, some of these were made for that. That's just the reality of it. And being able to share that with an audience is extremely difficult. But there's work being done across the country right now that is trying to support the theater chains and the small independents, which for us are so important here. They engage with all our film festivals and all of those activities. And we want to make sure that they're able to come out the other end of this. So trying to activate them for other things so that they can make money during this time of protocol institution that allows them to, or doesn't allow them to activate, having other work in there and other things that they can do, whether it's creative or not, so that then when they come out on the other end of this, can actually re-engage and be part of the ecosystem again. It's so important.
I'd like to invite the other panelists to add on to this question if they'd like. Otherwise, I can move on. I know it's a tough question to answer.
Go ahead, Jill.
I was just going to say, I really loved seeing drive-ins happen again, and I hope we see more of that, because I mean, that was just awesome. And I really miss the smell of theater popcorn.
Yeah, agreed. I managed to catch some of the Calgary Underground Film Festival drive-ins, so those were awesome. Brock, did you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of cinema nerds got into movies because of that communal experience that a theater gives. That it is meant to, a movie's meant to hold your attention for its length of time and to tell you a story and not necessarily be just content, but to have means in that. And I think that there's differing opinions about where it goes, and I don't know where it will go, but there's some really interesting things that have come out of this. One is film festivals going to kind of a hybrid model where they're half online, half offline, which opens up some of the smaller film festivals to greater marketing in the world, which is really exciting because we are a smaller film festival circuit. And then shortening the window between when things show up online and when things go in theater. I don't have an opinion. I'm not an expert on what's right or wrong in that. I just see it happening. But I do think that theaters will live on, and drive-in theaters will live on because of this, just because of that nostalgic, almost like vinyl record quality that you can see. And I don't think that we've seen the last of theaters. So it's going to be rocky for now, but it'll work out.
And to your point, I think it's really important too, is the fact that now, and you said it, the smaller festivals, or even any festival now that has a virtual audience, has now been able to attract people from across the world. So how do they maintain some of that audience when we go back to whatever that sense of normalcy is in the next while, and theaters become a part, or other ways of triggering things become a part? And they're, and having a conversation with one of those festivals today, they said they have to find a hybrid now because they don't want to lose the audience that they've garnered that's helped their festival become more successful. So we're going to see some changes, but I'm hoping that both sides of the will be able to thrive once we get back to that level.
Fantastic. I'm going to ask one more question before we get into the Q&A. I know Laura has some questions that have been sent to her, so she'll also be asking some on behalf of those students. But what are some resources or programs students can access, or do you have any suggestions for essential reading for those who are interested in pursuing a career in film?
CSIF, one of the greatest resources we have in this province. They also have some counterparts in Edmonton, but I think utilizing our local folks here that can lead you in the right direction is extremely important. Our post-secondaries are doing a great job in being able to educate in different areas of the industry, and I think that just getting in. Brock said it several times now. This is a people industry. Getting engaged and learning from those that are in the industry, asking questions, introducing yourself, being part of a process. Lots of independent production going on that would love to get people's help, and CSIF can lead you in the right path of knowledge beyond what you've done coming out of your post-secondary as well. So there's lots of other stuff, but that's a great start right there.
Thank you for the advertisement. Yeah, we have recently launched like a mentorship program. So we're trying to pair up people who are really new or green in the industry with people who have been working in it a while, and allowing them to kind of share back and forth the experiences. And so you do get to kind of work with someone who knows what they're talking about and who can give you that kind of one-on-one attention. As well as we have a bunch of workshops coming up specifically on, making a film from pre-production all the way to, distribution. So that's coming up this summer. And yeah, we have a bunch of opportunities to network as well through all of our clubs and groups, and they're mostly online now, but through Zoom, anything is possible. And yeah, there's even M Media and Fava, which is in Edmonton, which Luke brought up. They also have partnerships with us, and we love to connect with members on their side, as well as offer opportunities. So we also have volunteer opportunities for people if they want to come in and help out with any of the equipment, or just on any productions. If there's anyone who wants to help on independent production shoots, we also have like a Slack board where you can advertise yourself. So yeah, there's a really strong independent community, as well as a lot of entry-level stuff that anyone can pretty much get into.
And once you've bridged that, then reach out to Keep Alberta Rolling, because Brock and his group have so much knowledge about what's going on in Alberta and where things are at. And then once you get to the next step of your career, look for programs like what's going on right now, which is our Alberta producer accelerator programs that bring in mentorship, world-class mentorship from everywhere, and allow you to go through a process where you can develop your own scripts and your own IP, to Jill's point earlier, and create that environment so that when you come out of that program, they put you in front of some of the streamers and the studios to try to sell your project, and they've helped you get to that point already. So there's a variety of levels of engagement that you can do throughout the industry that can be very valuable to you. But you've got a variety of people here, my three counterparts on this panel, that can send you in the right directions here. So reach out, have those conversations. And then my office and the people within my office are happy to help and point you in the right direction if you have stuff that you need, if you're going to try to do your own production and such, or you're going to do it on your own. There's always resources from our perspective as well.
Jill, do you have any resources or tips for those who might be interested in writing?
Oh, that's a good point. Actually, CSIF has a script club. So if you're interested, you can join CSIF, and they meet once a month. And it's a combination of reviewing each peer-reviewed script. So if you've written a short or a feature, the group, which is like, could be 10, could be 15 people, might be 6, who knows, depending on the month. But they'll all go through your work and give you some notes. That's wonderful. And then you read industry scripts as well. So we will read like a feature or let's see, I think we're actually doing audio dramas tonight. It's tonight, by the way, and shorts. So all kinds of things. It's a great way to expand your knowledge. There's a ton of really knowledgeable people there. And we hope to be actually being part of it. Myself and 2 other independent filmmakers are going to be hopefully putting together a script writing competition later this year. And which is going to lead into like a conference so that we can start to nurture and develop the relationship between writers and producers locally. So stay tuned.